So here's the Defibrillator from Medic Modules. Let's start by just patching in the saw wave and checking out the sound of these filters. We'll turn up our output level up on the VCA and our input gain. We've got VCF1 in high pass mode, which is then going into VCF2 in low pass mode. We'll start with that low pass filter. You can hear there's a little bit of drive and character on there. Nothing too crazy so far. We'll add a little bit of resonance. Resonance around halfway. See, that's starting to get quite saturated. Quite nice and throaty around that mid cut-off point. Full resonance. And the input level, like most filters, affects the tone. Let's back that off. So we can get quite a nice resonant sweep. It's not too dirty. I'll push the input gain. Really saturate that filter. With that left wide open, let's check out the high pass. And again, the input level will affect the tone. Some resonance. The gain off. So you can hear the high pass really screams. And we can change that to be a low pass on this switch. Slightly different colour to the low pass. Let's set a sequence going and put in some modulation. So turning up the output, you'll hear that we've got a sequence move in our oscillator. Let's modulate the low pass with an envelope. Add some resonance. So you can hear we can really get that sort of kicking and screaming. Let's leave that a little bit more tame and play around with the high pass. Let's use an LFO to modulate that high pass filter. We've got that self oscillating and you can hear this. With little regard for the inputs, that's off. So set up a new patch, creating a bass, and let's look at that MS20 trick and any dual filter trick really of getting a high pass filter before a low pass, Get a nice resonant peak on that high pass filter, just cutting in and boosting that bass in the bottom of the sequence. So here's the sound with the low pass open full and the cut off all the way down on the high pass. Got some envelope modulation for the low pass filter, all quite standard stuff. Fairly simple sound. Now let's play around with that high pass filter and see if we can get that boosting in and just really thickening out that low end. Now if you're listening in headphones or some monitors, you'll hear immediately when I push this Q up with the cutoff down, taking a lot of energy in that low end. Playing with the cutoff, we can find the perfect point to match our sequence. You can really start to hear that interfering with that low end growl. If I take the input out and make this self oscillate, we can actually hear this low end. Just quite saturated, low and farty. Let's see how that mixes in. So you can see with that high pass we can add a lot of low end by boosting the bottom frequencies in that sequence coming from our oscillator. So let's look at creating a bandpass filter. And a bandpass lets a band of frequencies around that cutoff point through. It cuts out frequencies higher and frequencies lower. So by combining a high pass and a low pass, we can actually create a bandpass that's got resonance settings on both sides for the low pass and the high pass. We get this sort of double peak of resonance in the bandpass, and we can modulate both sides separately as opposed to a single cutoff frequency. So here's my input. Some noise, a saw wave and a sub-square wave. You can drive that into the filter. I'm going to leave that backed off for now. Now if we close in the top end using the low pass and the low end using the high pass, we've now just created a band of frequencies that passes. If we modulate one of those and modulate the other with another LFO, you can hear these overlap. Now usually a bandpass filter would have a single cutoff frequency, so let's modulate that from the same source. And you can hear that band of frequencies moving. Get some resonance. And we can adjust the bandwidth by either adding in some more low end by dipping the high pass, or opening up the top end by opening the cutoff on the low pass. Until we've got a full frequency just with this modulation added. Close those back in. Going back to modulating those from two different sources. Create these swelling, overlapping tones as this bandwidth's opening and closing from that filter, those dual filters mixed together. So the defibrillator works great with all sorts of oscillators and different sound sources, so let's check some other sources out other than the oscillator we've been running in so far. Here's a simple little drum loop from the PO12 from Teenage Engineering. And this is just the dry sound. Simple, sort of shuffling little glitchy techno sort of loop. Now let's plug that into the output coming straight out of our defibrillator. Already much crunchier and saturated. Let's check out the filtering. you can hear that low end bass trick we did with the oscillator by boosting the resonance, finding the sweet spot. We've got that extra weight and saturation on the kick. Using an envelope follower, we can derive a CV signal from the amplitude of our input signal, and let's modulate the high pass with the envelope follower's output. You can hear that resonance in that high pass is following the levels within that beat. Gives us quite a nice dynamic sort of bass line to go along with it. Let's add a little reverb. At higher settings, that's almost like an auto wah pedal. Check it out modulating the low pass. Just turn the reverb down. Let's switch over from a drum machine and use a guitar at the input. In order to retain a cleaner guitar sound, I'm going to use a second input which doesn't saturate as much as pushing that level on the first input. So fairly clean. Just some saturation as we push the level. Let's explore using the high pass. So starting to get some saturation, let's use the envelope follower that we're using for the drums to control the cutoff on that high pass filter. A little bit less control, lower cutoff. Push the input on input channel 1. So much dirtier. Let's check channel 2 again. Sticking with a cleaner channel, let's move over to modulate the low pass filter. And some saturation on the first channel. fuzz. Let's create something really thick by modulating the first channel. So the modular works great on a variety of sources, and hopefully this video has just shown you that the sound that you can get from this thing, the saturation of all the stages at the input, the 2 filters, and at the VCA. We've got those switches to link. You can come direct out of each filter, change what inputs go into each filter, so you could use this in stereo, change the channels as we have in series. You can modulate the VCA as well, so it creates a really good back end for a synth voice or a processor for external signals.